WRKS Pickens Jackson.
Hey, what do you say we sing a driving song?
There's not going to be any singing around here. Just
real sports.
On the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly.
Oh, this is going to be sweet.
And it's all right here, right now on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Day of February 2024, Champ of the Chair Sports Maven on a Tuesday. Welcome in. We're streaming on the zone1059.com. Brought to you by Ameristar Casino. Out. Get out and play in the River City with Ameristar Casino. 4 great restaurants to serve you at Ameristar. You got the Red Lotus, you got bourbons, you've got the buffet, the Heritage Buffet, and, of course, you've got everything going on at Bella's. Don't forget about the Bottleneck Blues Bar on the weekend. And, of course, the best staff at Ameristar Casino down at the End Zone. Stay, play, and dine at Central Mississippi's premier gaming destination, Ameristar Casino Hotel. We are also brought to you by Cowboy Maloney's. And you can text us 601-885-3776. Make your house a home today with Cowboy Maloney's. 13 locations around the state. Online at cowboymaloneys.com. And call us on the Malone Roofing caller line, 601-897-1059. ecmalone.com is their website, 8337 Malone. And we're on X at Jake Wim. Brought to you by Clinton Body Shop, Richland, Clinton locations, OEM factory certified. All the manufacturers you trust at Clinton Body Shop. David Murray, 3:30. Gene's Page will talk Mississippi State sports, a little baseball, basketball, maybe a touch of football. Chris Landry, a lot of football, 4 to 4:30. And Mike Grace with the press box at 5:15. We ain't got no special guest today, do we? Good. No special guest today. All right. Lot to get to. Breaking news, a lot of breaking news on the college football playoff. The college football playoff has approved the move to the 5-7 format. Shouldn't be shocked by this. I mean, this was the only way they were going to, this is the only place they were going to land. There was one spot to land the chopper. It was on the 5-7. Never was going to stay at 6-6 for the 12-team playoff. The 5 highest ranked conference champions plus the next 7 highest-ranked teams as determined by the selection committee. There's a lot to unpack on this because there's a lot of back and forth on this. Brandon Marcello reports on this. The 5-7 format is official. The College Football Playoff Board of Managers today unanimously revised the qualifying criteria for the 12-team event to now include the 5 highest-ranked conference champions plus the next 7 highest-ranked teams as determined by the playoff committee. So let's stop right there. Remember, this is how this is going to go. The poll absolutely matters. The college football playoff poll, because this is very important, especially in this state this year. Ole Miss has basically booked hotels, gotten tuxedos. They're ready to go. They're ready to go to the dance, right? They feel like this is the year that they're going to be in this thing. So, and with especially with expanded. Let me look at the last year's playoff poll, and we'll go kind of the way this is, this all work off last year's poll and go from there. So the 5 highest conference champions. And remember, it doesn't matter, for instance, with the final poll, let's say if this was the final week of the regular season, and then we get through the conference championships. It doesn't matter if 2 teams are in succession, meaning Michigan 1, Washington 2 in the last poll. They're down in the same conference. So if Michigan was to win the Big Ten, they're not, just humor me here with this poll, then they would be in number 1. Texas, Alabama, next up on the line. The winner would be in with an automatic bid. Let's just say Texas. Florida State wins the ACC. They're in. They're the 5th seed in the poll, but they would be in and they would get a bye. Then you got to go all the way down to Arizona at 14. 14. That's your 4th team in because they would have won the Big 12. Then you got to go all the way down to Liberty at 23. That's your 5th team in. And then you got to go back to the top, and then the next 7 teams would get in. Washington, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Missouri, Penn State, and then Ole Miss. So Ole Miss would have been the last team in based on the way this criteria is set up. Now, Notre Dame would have got left out. LSU would have missed it. Oklahoma would have missed it. Louisville would have missed it. So just to know how the format is set up. Quote, this is a very logical adjustment for the college football playoff based on the evolution of the conference structures since the board first adopted the new format in September of 2022, said Dr. Mark Keenum, president of Mississippi State and chair of the College Football Playoff Board of Managers. I know this change will also be well received by student athletes, coaches, and fans. We'll be pleased to see how the new format comes to life on the field this postseason. This change modifies the original plan, which calls for the bracket each year to include the 6 highest ranked conference champions plus the next 6 highest teams. Under the 12-team playoff format that begins this fall, the 4 highest ranked conference champions will be seeded 1 through 4, and each will receive a first-round bye, while each team seeded 5 through 12 will play each other in the first round, and, of course, down the road we go. So you're going to go 5 plus 7. What'll be interesting to me is this. Will the ranking system change for the college football playoff? And here's what I mean. If you go down and look, Liberty was 13-0 as a Conference USA champion. Will they be still ranked behind the likes of an 8-4 Clemson or the 8-4 Tennessee or an 9-4 Oklahoma State, 8-4 Oregon State, or will they move them up based on record? Because there's still a lot about this system that we don't know. Let's see here. Real quickly on the Cowboy Maloney's text line, David and Brandon. So if Notre Dame was number 1, they would be number 6. David, that is a great question. Based on their criteria, yes, they would be. And we haven't thought about that. If the Irish was to go undefeated because they're not in a conference, they would be the 6th seed. Because now I am sure that Swarback, the athletics director for Notre Dame, would throw a freaking fit. But by this, what the committee has put out, and I'm now that David has brought this up, I haven't thought about it in this context. Why they would not have some sort of and I'm surprised that Notre Dame didn't push for this, some sort of a amendment if Notre Dame goes undefeated. But that is absolutely true, David. They would be the 6th seed. White Denzel, how long before Notre Dame whines that they can't get a bye? Back-to-back text on this. So, yeah, by White Denzel and David and Brandon, they will throw a fit if Notre Dame can't get a bye. But if anything's going to push them into a conference, it would be something like this. Also in this, quote, there will be no limit on the number of participants from a conference in the 12-team format. SEC Michael Bratton put this out earlier, kind of breaking down, looking at some of this verbiage. So, look, if the SEC is flooded inside the top 12, if it's 5 teams based on this criteria, then the 5 teams will likely go to the playoff. Ross Dellinger has a full story on unanimous adoption of the 5+7 format. We'll get into some of that. Also, NFL Combine, starting to eye that. That's coming up. While Michigan and Washington have the most players in the NFL Combine, USC had the most combined players on a team that finished unranked, Illinois and Arkansas. They have more NFL Combine players than wins last year, which is wild. If you think about it, Arkansas and Illinois have more players at the Combine than they do have wins from last year. Also, College Football Playoff revised qualifying criteria for the 12-team event. 5+7, as Brett McMurphy said, the 4 highest seed champions will be seeded 1 through 4. They'll get the first-round byes, and then everybody else will follow. Washington State president and College Football Playoff Board member Kirk Schultz. Remember, Kirk Schultz was throwing a fit about this. We, as in the Pac-2, deserve the same as the others, and really kind of had a grandstanding moment over the last several weeks. Says the Pac-12 never planned to hold up the 5-7 format now. And but he's worried about the future that the SEC and Big Ten and seeking multiple automatic qualifiers 4 AQs for a single conference has been floated. He tells Yahoo Sports, and we'll get into some of that on what some of the other conversation pieces were. He also advised the presidents to be more involved in vetting ideas. Presidents agreed and will now hold monthly calls. So that's what you need. You just need more monthly calls on this stuff. Dan Wetzel reports just 58 underclassmen declared for the NFL draft this year. Half the average from 2016 to 2022. So, you always had a big influx of juniors, big influx, and then third-year sophomores when they were really, really good. The reason, though, they say that is because that has been cut in half is the NIL and the transfer portal. It has kept guys in college, which is because they could probably make more money in that. And, of course, the SEC and Big Ten are expected to come with aggressive requests for more revenue distribution and access in the format of the playoff. There have been talks about expanding beyond 12 even now. So now they're already starting talking. We haven't even hit 12 yet. They're talking about expanding this and attaching multiple automatic qualifiers to their leagues. So I do want to get off into that story because that is conversation pieces. Remember, the SEC and Big Ten didn't just become, bedfellows, shall we say, just to become bedfellows. They have an agenda here. They know that the Big Ten and the SEC run college football. And now we're talking about an expanded playoff model off the 12 to where both leagues get automatic qualifiers. So the SEC may get 4. Top 4 teams go regardless. The Big Ten may get 4. Top 4 teams regardless. Speaking of the Big Ten, Michigan defensive back transfer Keon Sabb has enrolled in Alabama per Bama's NIL collective. So Bama picking up a defensive back from Michigan in Keon Sabb. And Michigan has just been decimated. After Jim Harbaugh left, the transfer portal, the coaches left, it'll be a very, very new look Michigan that we'll see this year. We're brought to you by Premier Plastic Surgery and Dr. Erica Bass. Call 601-981-2525. That's 601-981-2525. Get ready to get ripped. Hey, get ripped in your swimsuits, workout gear, and more. Mississippi Premier Plastic Surgery Dr. Erica Bass performs the Awake liposuction procedure in the clinic and with local anesthetics as well. 601-981-2525. David Murray coming up in 20 minutes.
And action!
We got that and a whole lot more around here. It's the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly.
What's the score?
He's got that, along with the hottest sports stories of the day on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by Malone Roofing Services. ECMalone.com is our website. 8337 Malone, commercial, residential roofing, done right with Malone Roofing Services. David Murray will join us in the next segment. We'll talk Mississippi State baseball, basketball, a little March Madness, and maybe hit on the college football playoff. Speaking of the college football playoff, Nick Saban, rest his soul. I don't mean it that way. He's become weak. Did you know that? Have you seen this? What's out about him? Nick Saban, the mighty Nick Saban, the greatest football coach in the history of the game, has been taken over by the media machine, and he is now weak. Nick Saban, on his upcoming new career on College Game Day, admitted he will not pick against Alabama on College Game Day. Quote, "I've tried to steer away from picking people. I think I'm going to have to do that now with this. I don't know why you have to always pick the team you think is going to win. You're allowed to have a spiritual feeling about who you like and who you want to win. So I think it'll be a lot of fun, but I'm staying away from that." Now, who's he been talking to? Aaron Rodgers? Has he been hanging out with Aaron Rodgers? All this spiritual feeling stuff? No, Nick. You're supposed to pick who's going to win. So we've got Nick Saban, who's not going to pick against Alabama, Kirk Herbstreit, who won't pick against Ohio State, and Desmond Howard, who won't pick against Michigan. Why do we even watch this show? Why do we even I don't even understand why we watch this show. I'm very disappointed in Nick Saban over this. White Denzel on the Cowboy Maloney's text line. I know some people would hate it, but the college football playoff needs to do like the FCS and go to a 24-team playoff. Every conference champion would get in. First and second round matchups would be a high seed state, and of course the higher seed stadiums. I don't know that we're going to get to 24. I could definitely see this going immediately from, in 2-3 years, from 12 to 16. And again, a lot of it's going to be dictated on what the Big Ten and the SEC wants to do. The Big Ten and the SEC will dictate, because they are the power brokers at the table, which direction this goes. Top 10 big play wide receivers to watch 2024, courtesy of 247sports.com. Luther Burton at Missouri ranked number 1, and he is an absolute stud. Tatera McMillan from Arizona, he is still there. He did not leave the program. He's number 2. C.J. Daniels had a really good year last year for LSU. He's at number 3. Colin Lacey at Louisville, number 4. Trey Harris, Ole Miss, number 5. Tez Johnson, Oregon, number 6. Jalen Royals is number 7. He's at Utah State. Nick Anderson, Oklahoma, number 9. Chris Lewis at Temple, number 10. Xavier Restrepo, number 10 at Miami, the University of Miami. And we'll get an update on where the top 10 quarterbacks for 2025, where they're standing in their recruitments. 247sports.com has re-ranked the transfer portal classes for 2024, and Ole Miss is number 1. Number 1. There's 17 commits, grade out higher than Texas A&M, and they're 23 commitments. So Texas A&M basically has, at Ole Miss to some degree, a full class of transfer portal guys, 23 guys. Oregon with 11 commitments at number 3. Florida State 15 at number 4. Colorado 24 commits at number 5. Louisville 25 commits at number 6. Texas 8 at number 7. Ohio State 7 at number 8. South Carolina 20, and then NC State has 12. So as 247 Sports takes a look at the transfer portal classes, we'll get into also big play wide receivers, more of kind of an expanded role on the big play wide receivers as we move along. 601-897-1059. Potential proposals from Big Ten and SEC seek more college football automatic qualifier spots for the conferences. Based on today's news from the college football playoff, Washington State President Kirk Schultz says the Pac-12 never planned to hold up the college football playoff's latest format change for the 24 and 25 events, but he is worried about modifications to the format starting in 2026, including potential proposals from the Big Ten and the SEC to seek for the league to be guaranteed multiple automatic qualifying spots. Quote, I worry about any league getting a certain number of automatic berths beyond their champion, said Schultz, a member of the Board of Managers made up of university presidents from each FBS league and Notre Dame. I wouldn't be alone in that. Here's what I don't understand. Why are we paying so much attention to what Kirk Schultz has to say? He is the president of Washington State in a league that has 2 teams. I don't understand this at all, why he is getting so much time in the media, but he is. In a virtual meeting on Tuesday, college football playoff presidents adopted a long-expected change to the 12-team expansion. Through the necessary unanimous votes, approving a move from 6+6 model to 5-7 in the format. The change adds an at-large spot and decreases an automatic qualifying spot from 6 to 5 in light of the Pac-12 realignment situation. Schultz delayed a vote on the issue last month in order to pitch a proposal to the board Tuesday seeking for the Pac-12 to retain its revenue and voting rights privileges as a Power 5 conference starting with a new contract in 2026. There was, quote, not a lot of support for the proposal, Schultz said in describing the feedback from presidents. Well, of course it wasn't a lot of support. Who in their right mind is going to support a proposal to where 2 teams get the same bag of goods as 16, 18, and 14 teams? Nonetheless, he voted to move the change to a 5+7 format. However, he expressed a concern over the format in the future. The managers committee, the 10 FBS conference commissioners, said Notre Dame's athletics director and their athletics director scheduled to meet in Dallas on Wednesday in a critical gathering that is expected to produce ideas and potentially proposals for future revenue distribution, voting rights structure, and format. All of them unresolved issues that are delayed or could be delays any future agreements in the new television contract with ESPN. The Big Ten and SEC are expected to want more revenue in the new distribution model, more authority in a voting structure, and most notably, more access to the format. Quote, my commissioner tells me that there was an idea floated of a single league getting 4 automatic qualifiers into the playoffs. Schultz told Yahoo Sports on Tuesday, you go, boy, that doesn't sound like it's going to be well embraced by football fans around the country. The commissioners are fantastic, but they are paid to look out for the best, the betterment of their conferences. No, I would say that that's actually going to be embraced by a lot of football fans. I mean, I think everybody in the Southeastern Conference footprint would go for 4 automatic qualifiers. I think everybody in the Big Ten footprint would go for 4 automatic qualifiers in the Big Ten. So now you've just chalked off half the country that would be in favor if everybody's getting a piece of the pie. We're brought to you by Burgers, Blues, Barbecue, Flowwood location right next to Chipotle, and they have breakfast every morning. Go by and see them. Also in Madison, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, Flowwood, Madison, and Brandon. Make sure to find them on their website and also social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram. Burgers, Blues, Barbecue. David Murray coming up next. Back in a bit.
Turning to sports.
With Jake Wimberly on the afternoon drive.
One of the last pure pleasures I have left in my life.
Yeah, maybe you ought to get a life first, okay? On ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by friends at Capital Orthopedic, online at capitalortho.com. That's capitalortho.com. Let their experienced caring team of orthopedic surgeons and physical therapists at Capital Orthopedic help you through your frustrating times and how to learn how to live with pain. Several locations to serve you: Flowwood, Madison, Clinton, Brookhaven, and Hazelhurst, also in Kosciuszko. Move better, live better, and be better with Capital Orthopedic, 601-987-8200, online at capitalortho.com. David Murray is online as well. You can find him on X. Check him out at genespage.com, 247 Sports, Mississippi State affiliate, as he is here to talk a little Mississippi State sports with us. David, happy Tuesday. How are you?
Well, we're inching closer to the time of 3 sports seasons. The baseball is now underway. Basketball is hitting down the stretch of the regular schedule, and we don't know when exactly. I expect somewhere around the 18th, 19th, 20th of March, but spring football will be starting at some point. Coach Jeff Levy will be giving us a schedule and a roster, and it's time to start talking about that. Once they get back from spring break, apparently they'll get on the field and go. And in fact, right now I'm working on a piece, kind of an updated piece on comparing the quarterback rooms of the last 10, 12 years at Mississippi State and how they've rated recruiting-wise. Just one of those things that you use to fill in time before you actually have practice to talk about.
No, that's actually fascinating. I'll be looking forward to that piece, to get into the quarterback room, because, I mean, we're old enough, well, a lot of us, I'll put myself in this, are old enough to remember prior to Dan Mullen, hey, and no disrespect to our good friend Matt Wyatt, who's on this network, Mississippi State didn't have a whole lot to, I mean, you had the John Bonds and you had, Sleepies and those kind of guys, some guys that could play, Wayne Madkin, but it was few and far between before Dan Mullen got to Starkville.
Well, more so the point of the story is what was the entire room like at the time, whether the guys ended up playing or not. I mean, you remember in 2016, there were so many unknown factors, and guys like, remember Damian Williams, who'd won a game or two, but Nick Tiano, Nick Fitzgerald, Elijah Staley, all of a sudden Fitzgerald emerges, but that was a thin room. Of course, Mike Leach went into a season basically with 3 quarterbacks his first year. Then all of a sudden he had 6 in the room the next year. Well, 7 if you count a walk-on or 2. So it's all over the map there, but I just find it interesting to judge where it's coming. And for comparison, because right now, not counting walk-ons, we've got 3 in Jeff Levy's first room. Of course, in Chris Parson, who has the only experience at State, Blake Shapen, who has varsity experience at Baylor, and a kid out of high school, Michael Van Buren. Now, the average score of that group is going to come in pretty good as far as their rankings and all. But you start looking and think about if Parson is anywhere near 100% healthy, let the competition begin.
David, speaking of competition, baseball is underway. Mississippi State went 2-1 against Air Force over the weekend, and we know this. Mississippi State fans are pound for pound the most passionate baseball fans in the country. We were laughing about it, but to kind of calm it down a little bit, Friday we were on the air when Mississippi State, when first pitch came out for Air Force, and people were texting and a couple calling in, kind of living and dying on every pitch, and like, hey man, this is a long season, but you got to kind of relax just a little bit. But the Bulldogs get to 2-1. They'll have Austin Peay today and tomorrow. But your thoughts on a small sample size of this baseball team?
Well, as I wrote yesterday, you go into the season thinking the offense is going to carry you, the defense will be improved, and the pitching is questionable. Well, kind of turned that around. The defense, by the way, was solid. At least it was for a couple of innings, and all of a sudden Logan Kohler goes down with a fluke shoulder separation trying to make a tag. Now, we don't know how much longer he'll be back in. In just the brief time he was out there, though, you sit there and say, wow, third base defensive issues totally solved. And now they're back open, although I thought Nate Chester played pretty well in his gap there. So I do think the defense will be generally improved. And, of course, you have Ross Highfield's not catching. You have two guys who stepped in and did admirable jobs, I thought. Main thing to me was the pitching. What was it? Your starting pitching ate up 15 innings, 25 strikeouts, 3 walks between them, decent ERA. You feel really good about that. And if not for a blow-up by Holcomb, you probably sweep the series. Or you could also say if you make some wiser choices running the bases in Game 2, you win all 3 games. So still some things to work out. You need Amani Larry to start hitting at the top of the order. You need Hunter Hines to be more consistent, start getting some guys in there, settle what you're going to do in the absence of Kohler. Dylan Cupp, who made good contact but was 0 for 9, is going to be in the 9-hole today. I see Johnny Long will be starting at catcher today as well. I think the makings of a good offense is still there. I'm impressed with the pitching. Now you just need to start settling some roles, and that's what these midweek games are about.
David Murray on your radio, Tuesday edition of the program. Make sure to find him on Gene's page and, of course, on X, 247 Sports, talking Mississippi State sports. Let's roll over to basketball. Dogs are 6-6 in the conference. They're on a 3-game winning streak. And if you look at most of the bracketologists that are out there, regardless of the outlet that you subscribe to, Mississippi State is anywhere from a 7, 8, 9, 10 seed right now in the bracket. But a pretty daunting task to finish here. Ole Miss obviously at home tomorrow night. They'll travel to LSU over the weekend. Kentucky next week, February 27th on Tuesday at 6 p.m. start against Kentucky. They get them at home, have to travel to Auburn, Texas A&M, and then finish that out with South Carolina. So, I mean, there's a lot of work to do here, but they do get some of these big boys at home.
Well, not only that, you get your arch rival at home tomorrow, and remember how close it was up in Oxford, and Josh Hubbard did not have a good second half. I think he'll have his emotions under better control. I expect Toto Smith to play smarter and avoid the foul trouble this time against Ole Miss. And now that you have guys like Shaq Moore stepping up more offensively, you feel better about this. Then you go down to play an LSU team that's all of a sudden reeling again. And, you mentioned Kentucky. Okay, top to bottom, the best lineup in the conference when they decide to play ball. A&M's looking shaky again. South Carolina all of a sudden is vulnerable. Chris Jan's team has a chance to really get something done here at the end of the season. Both brackets I looked at today from the reputable guys had them listed as a 10 seed. So they're not, as I wrote, they're not on the bubble, but they can see it. So the trick now is keep putting those W's on there. The net is, I think, 38 at the moment, 6th best in the SEC. The SEC is good, although I want to qualify this too. I did some numbering, and the SEC is only 36 and 87 in quad one games. Now, that includes playing each other, but I'm not sure I see an SEC team right now that's capable of doing any real damage long-term in the NCAA tournament. So you need to position yourself the best you can to get the best possible seeding in the NCAAs. Of course, here I am saying they're one injury away or one slump away from being back on that bubble. So it's going to be an entertaining couple of weeks ahead for Chris Jan's team. But if you just get some guys, keep them out of foul trouble, keep them healthy, and get back to making the shots that they can make, I feel good about this team down the stretch.
David, let's finish it up while I got you a couple minutes. Get your thoughts on the College Football Playoff Committee today, chaired by Dr. Mark Keenum from Mississippi State.
I thought you might be asking about that.
Yeah, just a little bit. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. The 5-7 model is approved, so that's Power 4 champions plus a group of 5. Then the rest are going to be automatic qualifiers based on the ranking of the playoff. Already some grumbling from some people inside the committee saying, hey, the SEC, the Big Ten are looking for more automatic qualifiers, maybe an expanded playoff down the road. I don't think there's any secret the SEC and the Big Ten hold all the cards here, but your thoughts on what has transpired today?
Well, I thought this would get settled eventually. I didn't think it would happen quite this soon after, a quick conversation I had with Dr. Mark Keenum a couple of weeks ago. He said because it had to be a unanimous vote, all it took was one to hang the process up. So part of me wonders what kind of wheeling and dealing was going on in the background just to get this settled so soon. And I think part of it, too, is all the Group of 5 programs and conferences knew they've got 2 years anyway under the current model. After the 2025 season, it's all out the window, and the power conferences could do exactly what they wanted. And by the way, those are sitting there right now saying the Pac-12 doesn't have a place. They do. I think what's going to happen is the Pac-12 and the Mountain West will essentially merge, but keep the Pac-12 name. You know, Kirk Schultz, who we at Mississippi State know well, out at Washington State. Kudos to him for pulling this off, for standing his ground and keeping the Pac-12 viable, at least as far as the playoff goes. I think eventually you're going to see it be, for all intents and purposes, a 4+8. They won't call it that. I think that's what it's going to turn into, for the simple reason that's what television wants. I'm not going to say that's fair. My thing about sports is there's nothing fair in sports except the ball. Everything is what power gets done. And I think eventually your 4 main conferences will have automatic bids of 1 and 2, and then you'll have a couple spots left. It'll be a 16-team playoff by that point, and that will be the next stage before finally you see a breakaway eventually when some of these TV contracts run out. You'll see anywhere from 32 to 48 schools. I say schools, so basically club teams paying the school for the right for the facilities and the colors, not even using student athletes anymore, and the rest of us will go off and play college football, whoever's left.
Very well done, as always. Make sure to find him on X. Check him out at Gene's page. A lot going on with baseball, basketball, and he said football's coming back right around the corner. David, I appreciate your time. Enjoy the week, and look, we'll catch up and do it again soon.
Jake, Ben, good to hear from you as always.
Thanks so much. Brought to you by Ashley Howie, Crown Like Realtors, 769-226-3782, Facebook.com/Ashley Howie Realtor if you're looking to buy, sell, or relocate. Back in a bit.
It's time to get
Back in the game.
with Jake Wimberly and the Afternoon Drive.
That's entertainment.
On the station that specializes in the Mississippi sports you love.
Now we're talking.
Live and local on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Brought to you by Madison PTS, Bill Thomas and his team at Madison PTS. Power Pitching here to help your players and athletes this year. New location, 316 Old Jackson Road. Ask about all the stuff that they have available, like sports performance evaluations, arm care programs, strength and conditioning classes, velocity enhancement, and more. You can find out your numbers like Repsato Pitch Logic Ball, also pulse sensors for the elbow and blast motion sensors for your bat. Go to ptssports.training. That's ptsports.training, or call 601-898-1828 to learn more today. Also ask about cage rentals as well. Appreciate David Murray jumping in. We'll have Chris Landry at the top of the hour. Go 30 minutes. Mike Grace at 5:15. Text us 601-885-3776. That is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. Possum Neck Joe. Funny how people feel the need to act like they are interested in baseball. Next up, UFL. March 30th. What is UFL? What is this? Is this that football league?
Yeah. United Football League.
Is Joe right? There are baseball enthusiasts, but are people really interested in baseball?
No, y'all want to be interested in baseball, and it's trendy to talk about, oh, it's baseball season. Oh, Duty Noble. Oh, cool stadium. Neat stadium. Best stadium. Baseball, 3-game series against Air Force, 4-game series against Hawaii, but I feel like Joe's right.
Well, I do think there are your purists who love it, but not everybody loves it, right? You just kind of love it. It's kind of like you kind of want a salad, right, as an appetizer. Some people love salad, and then some people just get it because they feel like they need to get it, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, you just feel like you need a salad. You don't want salad because I think it's weird to eat things that are green, and you do too, but
me?
No, not you, but
Chris Brooks does.
Yes. Yeah, he does.
He will 100% stay away from it. 100%.
So baseball and salad.
Speaking of
who
devil,
needs it?
Chris Brooks on the text line. Nobody should eat salad. See? There he is. And look, he means that. I have seen him in real time give a salad away at a luncheon before.
I remember it.
He traded, I think, a salad for a cookie one day. So this man,
I remember that. It was a sweet of some sort, cookie or cake.
he says what he means, and he means what he says. Jason in Flagstaff, holy crap, I had to pull over and laugh. And at the, Jason, I don't know. That's on the stream. I have no idea what that is. Have you heard this commercial he's talking about? I have no idea what that is. It's corporate alpha right there. No telling what you're going to get out there in the interwebs. David Murray, I forgot all about this guy. Was talking about he's got his piece coming out on 247 Sports about Mississippi State quarterback rooms over the years. He referenced Damian Williams. Remember Damian Williams?
Quarterback?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
2016. And I think he was there when Nick Fitzgerald was there. And there was a segment. I'm old enough to remember there was a segment of the Mississippi State fan base that thought this guy was the answer. And this guy was very average. Very, very average. I don't know, just it made me chuckle when he said, I had not heard the name Damian Williams in forever.
Wasn't he there when Dak Prescott was there?
He was.
And his jersey was Damn Williams.
Was it really?
Yeah. I remember Jay White pointing that out. And then I couldn't help not see it. Moving on.
It was
Damn Williams. Classic White.
That is fantastic. I don't remember this. I'm not. I believe it's true though, because only Jay would find something like that, right? Let's see here. All right, NFL dates, key dates for the NFL. Right now, you got franchise transition tag window up to February. But today it opens, and then March 5th franchise window closes at 4 p.m. Eastern. NFL scouting combine February 29th, coming up here in 9 days. You'll have defensive linemen and linebackers. On March 1st, you'll have defensive backs and tight ends. March 2nd, quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs. March 3rd, you'll have the offensive linemen. Free agency, the window there, March 11th through the 13th. That's the, quote, legal tampering period, as the NFL calls it. March 13th, also the 2024 league year opens. Annual meetings will be March 24th through the 27th for the NFL. Off-season workouts, April 1st will be the first with teams with a first-year head coach can begin off-season workouts. April 15th, teams with returning head coaches can have some workouts. Pre-NFL draft, April 17th is the deadline for NFL draft prospects to meet at team facilities. April 19th, deadline for restricted free agents to sign offer sheets. And April 24th, deadline to RFA match offer sheets, deadline to meet with the NFL draft prospects in any location. Of course, the draft this year is in Detroit, April 25th, 26th, and 27th. And then post-draft, you'll have May 2nd, deadline for teams to pick up fifth-year options. May 3rd through 6th and or 10th through 13th. That's rookie minicamps. And then, of course, you got the lead-in to franchise tag deadlines in July. And then you're off and running with training camps, and we're back with the NFL. So that's just a little bit on the National Football League. When you look at SEC basketball, talking to David Murray about Mississippi State, in a nice position for the NCAA tournament. Still, as he said, they can see the bubble out there. You don't want to get out there, but Alabama still leads the conference by one game over Tennessee, 10-2 in the conference. Tennessee 9-3. South Carolina, Auburn 9-4. Florida and Kentucky at 8-4. Ole Miss and Mississippi State at 6-6. They'll break that tie tomorrow night, and then Texas A&M at 6-6 as well. Jason and Flagstaff, Damian Williams was the guy who played when Dak got hurt. That is correct. All the talent in the world for Mullen's system, good runner. Cannon of an arm, Jason. I don't know if he had that, but just couldn't figure it out. I thought he was going to be the guy. He was a nice quarterback. He'd have been a really good quarterback at Maryland, but for Mississippi State, he was okay. He's a good off the bench guy. Who was that quarterback? Was it Mike Wright this year for Mississippi State? Reminded me a lot of Damian Williams. Not quite as thick as him, but you remember Mississippi State fans thought he would be the answer too. But that's just what happens. Fans do that. They think the guy behind the guy is the answer. And I had totally forgot about Damian Williams until David said that.
He was the one also to start the 2014 season when Mullen insisted two-quarterback system.
You know, if you go back real quickly, see if I got time to do this. This laptop will work. Yeah, let's go back 24. That's a great memory recall there. I forgot about that. 2014 Mississippi State. And you look at passing, it was Prescott and Williams. And Mullen did say that he was going to do a 2-quarterback system. And if you remember, they played Southern Miss and UAB and Williams. Let me go over here and look at his. Against Southern Miss, he was 5 of 8 for 65 yards. And then he played a little bit in the second game, 2 snaps in the third game, and then it was Prescott. Yeah, for some reason, after the 2013 season, Dan Mullen thought that he was going to run a 2-quarterback system. And it looked total, just whatever. That's a great recall. I forgot about that. Totally forgot about that. And then, of course, it was Dak Prescott the rest of the way. 601-885-3776. That is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. We'll have Chris Landry coming up in the next segment. Also, Mike Grace at 5:15 as we move along. We're brought to you by Sound Communications, online at soundcomav.com. Collaborate, design, and build with Sound Communications. They've been around since 1955. Let them help you in your office, church, school, government, or medical facility. That's soundcomav.com. Chris Landry coming up next.
The number you have reached.
WRKS Pickens Jackson. From college football to the NFL to high school football. 365 days a year. Hear it all on Jackson Sports Authority. Live and local at 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com. Now let's get back to the afternoon drive with Jake Wimberly.
Hour 2 brought to you by Mississippi Legends Grill. You got trivia tonight, not your grandmother's bingo tomorrow night. Kids eat free on Thursday. Catfish Friday on Friday. Get the lunch special of the day on Facebook.com/Mississippi Legends Grill. Get out and enjoy corner of Castlewoods Drive and Lakeland Drive. David Murray, hour number 1, talking Mississippi State sports. We'll get all this on the podcast. Right now, Chris Landry, LandryFootball.com, and, of course, Landry Football on X. Here to talk smorgasbord, NFL, college football with us. Chris, welcome in, sir. How are you?
Doing good, Jacob. Good to be with you, man.
Hey, I appreciate you. All right, let's go here college, a little college. I want to get your thoughts on today, the College Football Playoff Committee, to no surprise, approved the 5+7 model, which we're talking about 4 Power 4 now champions plus a group of 5 champion, and then the next 7 highest-ranked teams in the College Football Playoff poll. But some talk inside the committee today, a little bit of worrisome, I guess you could say, that the SEC and Big Ten are talking already expansion privately, and they're talking about automatic qualifiers. So that's probably able to figure where we're headed, but your thoughts on everything that happened today?
I expected it. It's the way the tea leaves were being read that it was going to come out that way. My only problem with it, and this didn't happen today. We knew this was going to happen, and I mentioned it though. I am not a fan, and I think this is something that's being overlooked in the media, and it's going to be the course of discussion going forward when the playoffs are announced. We're going to have a team, and I think the SEC is more than likely the one, and the Big Ten could be as well. You're going to have a team, maybe the second best team in the SEC, that just clearly is one of the best teams in the country, one of the top 2 probably. And they're going to be, and I don't think people got their minds wrapped around it and don't realize it. They're not going to be one of the top 4 seeds. And that's going to be a big issue. So you could have, for example, I'm just going to throw this out. Second best team in the SEC, and just throw that out there. I'm going to say that Georgia's maybe the best next year. You got a really good team that's 11-1 or something, and then you've got maybe a 9-3 Arizona team win the Big 12. They're going to be ranked higher, and I don't think people understand that or realize that. I mean, they figure this out that they're going to be one of the top 4 seeds, Arizona, and then maybe the second best team in the country, in the Big Ten or the SEC. They're going to be outside the top four. They're going to be one of the at-larges. Not a big fan of that. We have that in the NFL where you obviously a wild card team plays in the wild card round. They go on the road and play a team that's barely 500. But I think that's going to be something that's going to be talked about as like that. I don't think people quite get that at this point. I think it's positive that we're expanding. I think all of that is good. But that's the biggest issue. What happened today was expected. I think as the Pac-12 is kind of picking up the pieces and they've parted ways with their commissioner and got a new commissioner, I think for them it makes sense because they don't have an automatic. I mean, they have no automatic bid status, so their best chance of getting in, if they're the two remaining, is getting an at-large spot. So I think we're going to have to revisit this. The two things that I just mentioned, where's the Pac-12 going to be going forward after this year? I think we're going to have to see that and how it shakes out.
Chris Landry on your radio talking college and the NFL on a Tuesday. I've had to move around just a little bit. We appreciate that. Go to LandryFootball.com and, of course, Landry Football on X. Chris, I've been talking a little bit about what your point is to that is, if you take this past year's final poll, Arizona was number 14 in the poll. Let's just say they won the Big 12. Well, they would get that automatic qualifier. Mm-hmm. And then you talk about the next highest team, which would be a group of 5 team. You got to go all the way down to 23 at Liberty. So they would get in as well. I'll be interested to see if let me see how to frame this up. The committee and the way that they put the poll together, if maybe they give a little more credence to a 13-0 Liberty in a situation like this, or will they still just keep it the same? And then all of a sudden, like you said, people's heads will explode. Wait a minute, what do you mean Liberty's 23rd? How are they in the playoff?
That's right. And not only that, how do they get a bye? I mean,
yeah.
They're one of now they're there, and then you're telling me that the second best team in the SEC or Big Ten has got to now go win an extra game. I don't think people are talking about that enough. I think they're just, everybody gets in, and it's fine. It just we haven't gotten people to think in terms of once they get in, how it's going to shape up. And, I think that's going to be a big factor. Here's the other thing, and I'm not saying this is going to happen this way. Let's just say Notre Dame has one of those years. They're 12-0, and they look like a great – not going to be – they're going to have to win that extra game. They can't win a conference. They're not in the conference because they see it's their fault. They should belong in the conference. I get all that, but there again, that's going to be all right, they're a great-looking team. They're an independent, so they're completely ineligible. Now, they agreed to it because in their eyes, they're going to get to play an extra game, and it's going to, in that case, be on their home stadium. So they're giving up that they're basically likely getting a home game if they're good enough to make the playoffs. I'm talking about and giving that up as opposed to giving up the bye. I still think it's still going to be very intriguing to see. And again, there's always some argument. Nothing's perfect. I get it, and I'm fine with it. I'm just pointing something out that I did a podcast about it a while back, and I kind of went through that exact scenario and got the feedback. What do you mean? I didn't get. Yeah, that's exactly right. The ACC, and I know the ACC still, Clemson's still good, Florida State's still good, but let's look at the Big 12 now. Again, and I think Arizona's going to be a pretty good team this year. You're going to be talking about maybe a Big 12 team with the 3 losses going to be ranked ahead. They're going to be not as good, not ranked high. They're going to that team that's maybe ranked second in the country is not going to be eligible to be one of the top 4 seeds. They got automatically go into it. Think NFL. Think about that, and I don't think that people have a full grasp of that yet.
Yeah, you went right where I wanted to go, and I'm glad you brought that up about Notre Dame. I'm a little, because I had a couple of listeners text in hour one about Notre Dame and about that exact situation. I'm a little surprised, but I think you answered it, why Jack Swarbrick would not have pushback on that, but we have not heard anything about that as far as, why Notre Dame could or could not maybe be eligible for one of these top 4 seeds.
Yeah, because they're not in the conference. They don't want to get in the conference, and they basically said, look, we're fine with it. We'll get in. We got a home game. And we're just going to play that home game in the playoffs. But yeah, they basically have voted themselves. We'll play the extra game. We'll play it at home if we make the playoffs. That's it. That's the way it is. And it's one of the unique quirks of the complexities of the college game. But you know, and they know they were going to get. Well, you don't want that. Get into a conference. Well, they don't want to do that. You know, and at least the current administration has no desire to do that. So they're basically saying, we're good. And we're going to take it that way. We're going to take that extra game. We're going to play it at home, and we're going to be good with it. So it's, you know, again, it's going to be talked about. I think right now everybody's just excited that we've got playoffs, as am I. I just think that the argument's going to be a lot different this year. Not who makes it, but man, I forgot that, you know, that this doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right. And, you know, again, you deal with that in the NFL. But, you know, for some reason, it's just going to resonate more, Jacob, in college, because in college it's always, I mean, you know how it is. This last year it was Florida State deserves to get in or didn't. You know, that was the argument. Now we're going to move to a different argument. We'll still have the argument about this team got in over that team, but I think it's going to move towards, man, I can't believe it. We're Georgia, and they, you know, I'm a Georgia fan or whatever. I mean, think about this. The Ole Miss fans, I don't know that I think Ole Miss is you know, as good as people are predicting, but I think they're going to be good. But yeah, you can be really good, and maybe you have a great record and against a great schedule. Unless you win the SEC, you're not going to be one of the top 4 seeds. And now you've added Texas and Oklahoma. Now you've made that conference even stronger, and the same thing can be said about the Big Ten. You're Oregon, you're USC. If Ohio State's the best team, you're the second best team in the Big Ten. You're not one of the top 4 seeds. You go automatically into that at-larges, and you're going to have a home game perhaps, depending on how you rank, but you're not going to be in the top 4. That's huge. That is huge because you get a bye if you're one of the top 4 seeds. So you just because you win a weaker conference, you're going to get a bye. The seeding, just for seeding, doesn't matter if everybody's playing the first week. Well, it's not the case. Those top 4 teams, they get to sit home and let everybody, work it out and fight to survive the next week. You gotta abide in the next round.
Chris Landry on your radio on a Tuesday. We got to take a timeout. We're brought to you by BCI. Go to bcipeople.com. Call 601-427-4185 for managed IT services, data backup solutions, and ransomware protection. Let BCI help you in your office or place of worship. Timeout on the floor. We come back. One more college. We'll jump into some NFL and more. Back in a bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come to go
Back to the afternoon drive with Jake Wimberly. With the hottest sports stories of the day.
For one of those moments, it only happens
right here
On ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by Went McGee. He is the mortgage man, online at mortgagemanms.com. Let Went shop rates, loans, the rate process move you through this year, 2024. Bank of England Mortgage, a century of American stability. Chris Landry, segment 2 on a Tuesday. Make sure to grab him at Landry Football on X, LandryFootball.com. Chris, before I have a couple NFL questions, of course, we'll get more into the NFL with the Combine coming up and other things with you here in the coming weeks. But it looks like Florida State and the ACC, at least on excerpts I've read, may be coming to some sort of a divorce settlement, a buyout, shall we say. If this does happen, do you foresee a potential exodus now of the ACC that could be coming in the next year?
The talk that is heating up is, and this is real intriguing when you think about this, it's the term being used, private equity funding.
Yeah.
Would a school like Florida State basically go to a private equity group and get, $500 million. And that private equity company would have ownership, 33, I'm just making this up, folks, the numbers. 33% of the revenue for the next, 7 years, 8 years. In which case, but for that they would get $500 million up front, which they could pay off to get out of the ACC, and then they would have to, for the forever term that is agreed upon, they would have to give up a percentage, but they would get a lot more money, and then they could pay that off over time, and then once that time period is over, then they're free and clear. That is an option. But before anybody can take that path, they have to have a home. Do we know for certain Big Ten wants them? I don't get the feeling that the SEC does. I just no one. I don't get a sense from any of my friends in the SEC that. I mean, I will get a different conversation. Ears will perk up when the thought of Clemson comes up. It just doesn't, for whatever reason, they just don't have that warm, fuzzy feeling about Florida State. And it's nothing to do with this past offseason and the vitriol. They just, now I almost get the feeling like if the Big Ten wants to get in the SEC or the Florida footprint, that maybe they would be interested. And if they are interested, would the SEC then become interested in trumping them to keep them out of Florida? That's the only thing, but it just doesn't. And I think that's the most important thing, because I think the other part is potentially doable. I do think, and by the way, that is why the ACC made the move to bring in Stanford, Cal, and SMU. There is a clause in their agreement that they have to have a certain amount of teams in the conference, or else the grant of rights is null and void, meaning if Florida State, Clemson were the league, and then it falls below that number, then there are no grant of rights. So people say, well, why would they bring in Stanford, Cal, and SMU? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't, other than it gives them numbers and security to keep the number up to the threshold to where the grant of rights are still in vogue, so it protects the financial solvency of the ACC. So I think it's one we're going to have to watch. I'm not going to tell you that I have any idea where it's going to go, but those are the questions that need to get answered. Who wants them? Because it's not a slam dunk. It wasn't like when Texas and Oklahoma, the SEC were interested. I don't know that this has been mentioned a bunch, but I found out after the fact that USC and UCLA had a conversation with the SEC when they thought there was Big Ten interest, and the SEC just was not interested in budging with that. So this was not like a shock to the SEC. They don't, to this point, the SEC doesn't want to get out of their footprint. They've expanded the footprint, but the footprint's just gotten larger, whereas the Big Ten has had to take a different approach. They're going to go – they're already from, Piscataway, New Jersey to Los Angeles, California, and that's just how they have to do their business, because in order to get the quality, they just got to go pick and choose, whereas the SEC feels like, look, we're still in continuum states, which they are. So I don't know what that means for Florida State, where they're going to end up. I know they want to leave. I mean, would you leave the ACC to go to the Big 12 if you were them? You're not getting any more money than you're going to get from the ACC deal, other than the Big 12 contract, TV contract comes up sooner than the ACC. But I got to believe that that Florida State's not making this move unless they know they get in a handshake agreement that they're welcome into the SEC or the Big Ten. It's got to be that first, or else they can't make the move.
Chris, let's get you out of here with this. NFL, Chris Jones, yesterday it was reported, or several days ago now, that the Chiefs have the option now to pick up Chris Jones and tag him and get him paid the $4.25 million he earned in incentives. Of course, then they'll get into the negotiation points. Well, I tell you what, I guess the question is, do they have the money? Do they have the cap space? When you talk about what they have to pay Patrick Mahomes, rightfully so, Chris Jones equally, he's going to demand a ton of money.
He's going to get a lot of money. They can do it. They can extend Patrick Mahomes and Craig cap room. I think what's going to happen is they'll have the tag to use. He earned 22.75 in 23, including incentives. And it's likely he's going to want a contract in that Aaron Donald's $31.5 million per year. They've got $22.6 million in cap room. They can restructure a few existing contracts like Mahomes. They can put the tag on Jones at approximately $20 million. But I think they could also get a 3-year deal done with him, if not before the tag or after the tag, at about $5 million a year. It maybe could be like a 4-year, 28 per year. It could be in that range. I think he'll stay. I think what to me is going to, because I'd be shocked if he leaves. I think that they'll get that done. I think the guy that's in danger of losing is L'Jarius Sneed, their outstanding corner, because he's on a rookie contract. He's going to get big money in the open market. Can they get Sneed done as well? I think that's going to be a bigger challenge, and it's going to take a lot for them, and it's going to be costly for them under the cap to get both done. But they've got some wiggle room to negotiate getting at least one of them done, and I think the priority is always going to be the front guy more than the back guy, even though Sneed's a great corner.
Make sure to find him on X for college and NFL coverage inside and outside the lines. Also, LandryFootball.com. Chris, I appreciate your time. Look, we'll get back at it on a Monday next week. Enjoy your week, and we'll talk next week.
Hey, appreciate you. Take care.
Thanks so much. Chris Landry on your radio. We're brought to you by Williams Newman Williams. When you need a win, car wreck, truck accident, nursing home neglect, online at WNWlegal.com. Back in a bit.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And welcome back to the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly, where he's talking about anything and everything that's Mississippi sports.
No, great afternoon.
Right here on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online worldwide on The Zone 1059.com.
We're brought to you by the MHSAA. Officially become official by going to MISSHSAA.com, 601-924-6400. We'll have the 2024 MHSAA Basketball Championships next Thursday afternoon, Friday and Saturday. 14 ball games over 2+ days. 2+ days, and, of course, that'll be right here on The Zone 105.9. Appreciate Chris Landry jumping in. We'll have Mike Grace coming in at 5:15. Let me get caught up over here. Chris Brooks says he won the trade with the salad and the cake. I think most people would agree with that. Let's see here. RT, I'm not sure because he ran Dak so much he knew he'd hurt him. I think that's a Damian Williams reference. Let's see. St. Louis Vic. Jake, do you remember the old Jackson Met days? Absolutely, Vic. I sure do. I was really into baseball back then. That and participating on Little League teams sponsored by Jitney Jungle or Bryant Foods. I lost interest for a while, and now we'll pay attention on Major League Baseball opening day, midseason, and playoffs. Checking in on my Braves throughout the season, though. Being here, you can't get away from it with the Cardinals, but I try. People down just don't know how good they have it. These high school kids up here are lucky if they can get on the field by March, so they constantly are behind. Has high school basketball playoffs started? Yes, we are in high school basketball playoffs. Championships are starting next week down at the Big House. That'll go all week long, Monday through Saturday night. And, of course, we'll have the championships again right here Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And I do remember the old Jackson Met days. I, like many of you, saw Darryl Strawberry hit moonshots into those pine trees on the backside of Smith Wills. And I think a lot of baseball fans kind of do like Vic. They watch opening day. They'll be all excited. They'll get on social media and talk about how excited, and then they'll go away from it. They'll come back midseason, and they'll come back in the playoffs. Told you, Major League Baseball is like a soap opera. If you watch Days of Our Lives, you could watch 2 episodes or 2 or 3 episodes and then go away from it for 6 months and come back, and not much has changed. Major League Baseball is a lot like that. Did your head get feeling better? A little bit. Good. So I'm nursing. I'm playing nurse in here today. Can I be called Nurse Jake? Is that okay? Or it's better than Dr. Jake, right? We'll go Nurse Jake. Jason in Flagstaff. I never bought into Mike Wright at all. certainly not to the degree that he should have replaced Will Rogers, so I get the point. I get points for that. What's that, 1 point total, Beaver? I think so. He also says, wasn't Damian Williams the guy who could stand flat-footed and chunk a football over the mountains, but then hit a barn 20 feet away? He may have been that guy. RT says, no, half fans watch opening day. Half fans? I'm just telling you, Major League Baseball is way too long. All right, let me get back over here on some notes. When you look at, let's see, let me find what I'm looking for here real quickly. All right, when you talk about the Combine, who's going to be represented at the Combine as far as colleges and universities? Some interesting numbers here. 13 schools with the most invites. This is the final AP poll just for reference. Not surprisingly, national champion Michigan, runner-up Washington, had the most players invited to the Combine. The Wolverines had a record 18 players invited, the most from one school. The Huskies had 13. Besides Michigan and Washington, five other schools had at least 10 players invited. Florida State had 12, Georgia 11, Texas had 10, Penn State 10, and Alabama 10. The 7 schools with the most players invited to the NFL Combine include all 4 college football playoff teams. Of the 13 schools with the most invites, only one, USC, had 8 players, was not ranked in the final poll. That's on Lincoln Riley, by the way. Michigan, number 1 at 18. Washington, number 2 at 13. Florida State, 12 players. Georgia, Texas, 11. Penn State had 10. Alabama, 10. USC, 8. LSU, 8. Missouri, 8. Notre Dame, 8. Ohio State, 8. And Oregon, 7. And when you look at only USC wasn't ranked in any polls. Can you believe that? Out of all those teams. And I'm serious when I say this. I don't know how good USC is going to be this year, but I would have to think that Lincoln Riley isn't necessarily on a hot seat, but you can't have that kind of talent and whiff like they have whiffed. Yesterday we told you about the best quarterback rooms in college football. And, of course, the number 1 quarterback room in college football is Texas. Also, 5 college football transfer portal results to monitor. The Oregon quarterback room has evolved into a heck of a room. I mean, a heck of a room. Oregon could make a case for that best spot. They have, obviously, you know, the Oregon quarterback room in 2023 with Bo Nix surged to record heights. Nix passed for more than 4,500 yards and 45 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. And we don't talk about that enough. Only 3 picks. Bo Nix really protected the football in his last year. 77.4% of his throws were completed. Nix and his backup, Ty Thompson, are both gone. But the Ducks brought in Dylan Gabriel, who, again, he's played a ton of football. Also snagged Dante Moore from UCLA, who was a former 5-star in 2023. Moore had an inconsistent freshman year, finished with 11 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. So it's his job for the future. A lot of people asked the question, well, why did both guys transfer? Well, Dylan Gabriel's got the 1 year. Dante Moore still is going to have a ton of football in front of him, and they may have some, quote, packages for him as well. Gabriel is arguably the most battle-tested signal caller in all of college football. And as a matter of fact, if I go over here and look, let me make sure I'm telling you this correctly. Quarterbacks for this year, yeah, Adam is the number 1 quarterback in college football. And that says a lot. I mean, Dylan Gabriel, when you talk about the power guys, like the power players for the playoff, Dylan Gabriel's number 1. Then Beaver's favorite quarterback, Drew Aller, is number 5 on my list. And then you got to go down to Jalen Milroe and then Cameron Ward, Alabama and Miami. So, and then Carson Beck and Jackson Dart are down the list just a little bit. But there's no doubt that I think Dylan Gabriel has the best, I guess, upside of any of the transfer portal quarterbacks. Texas's skill group is going to be something to watch this year. You know, I've talked a lot about Texas over the last several weeks. I like Texas to be in the SEC championship game. I've got Georgia right now on a slight lean to win the whole thing in the SEC. But the Longhorns and their wide receivers, I would say them, and I'm sitting here thinking Miami, you got to go to Oregon. Ole Miss is going to have a say. Best wide receiver group in the country. Xavier Worthy, Adonai Mitchell, and Jonathan Whittington, plus tight end Jatavian Sanders, the top 4 pass catchers in 2023. Each member of that quartet is headed to the NFL, and Texas chose to reload mainly through the portal. So all those guys are off and running. Texas added Alabama wide receiver Isaiah Bond, Oregon State wide receiver Silas Bolden, who really had a big year last year. They also brought in Houston playmaker Matthew Golden. And look, if you don't know a whole lot about Matthew Golden, you know, Houston, who now is in the Big 12, this was their first year in the Big 12 this past year. It was, let's see, let me make sure I'm telling you right, a down year for Houston. Now, obviously, they've got a new regime, but when you look at, and I'm trying to make sure I got this right here. He has not shown up on the stat line, but he had a pretty big year for a team that was not that good. He heads to Texas now and will be part of everything going on at Texas. Also, tight end Amari Niblick from Alabama. So several players left Alabama, ended up at Texas to create a heck of a group. Also, Colorado transfer class, again, is going to be something to watch. We'll see what happens in spring practice for Colorado, and will there be another mass cutting, not exodus, cutting, and then a reshuffle in the next transfer portal window. I don't know that it's going to be that big again for Deion Sanders, but I do think there will be some that will exit the building and new guys coming in. We're brought to you by Clinton Body Shop. Go to ClintonBodyShop.com. Call 601-924-2159. OEM factory certified. All the manufacturers you trust at Clinton Body Shop. Also down in Richland, 601-932-0459. Timeout on the floor. Back in a bit.
Okay, we're back. I'm ready. It's more of the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly, where he's live and local on Jackson Sports Authority, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, and online at thezone1059.com.
Brought to you by Waze Energy. It is the Afternoon Drive. 4 great flavors for you energy drink lovers out there. Rescue, the Engage, Respond, and Revive. Go to wazeenergy.com to learn more today. Get the interactive map. Find places like Hotspot Market 11 in Gluckstadt, next to Germantown High School, MJ Food Mart. Also, several others, Brandon Market and more. Go to facebook.com/Waze Energy today. We're also brought to you by Maristar Casino. Get out and play college baseball, college basketball, the NBA, and several other sports as well. RT, looks like your son is reeling in some good fish out there. I don't know if that's today, but if it is, you guys picked a good day to be on the lake or the reservoir or wherever you are. You can text us 601-885-3776. That is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. All right, let me chalk through some more stuff that's here as it pertains to the college football playoff. We'll with the college football playoff still undecided on future format, SEC and Big Ten expressed doubts in commitment. Remember, the SEC and the Big Ten joined forces here about 2 weeks ago. And they didn't join forces just to do it, just to have kind of a tag on their conferences. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to move. And it says almost 1 month ago, leaders of the college football playoff gathered in Houston ahead of the national championship game, expecting to adopt a change in format of the 12-team playoff. However, they left the meeting without a decision as one conference delayed a vote. Another hurdle in what's been multiple years of similar challenges to find a consensus in the course of the college football playoff governance. The latest delay casts more doubt on the future of the playoff beyond 2025. Now, remember, they did reach an agreement today, but for the sake of the story, the final year that the 10 FBS conferences in Notre Dame are contractually bonded together through the college football playoff's television deals and media rights partnership with ESPN. Though the college football playoff is in the midst of negotiations with ESPN to extend the deal, there is no current contractual bond or bounding contract starting in 2026. In an interview with Yahoo Sports earlier this week, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey and Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti for the first time publicly expressed doubts in their commitment to the future of the college football playoff if leaders can't get right a litany of issues. It comes on the heels of an announcement that the leagues were forming a joint advisory board to study the future of college athletics. And, you know, they're going to continue to bring these questions up. And I don't know that necessarily the SEC and the Big Ten are looking to force their way out. But if they don't get what they want, which is going to be a bigger revenue sharing pie, more teams in the playoff, probably an expanded playoff beyond 12, then you could see the two power brokers, head off into the sunset, shall we say. Also, potential proposals from the Big Ten and SEC seek more automatic qualifier spots inside the conference. I don't know what the number is for the SEC and what the number is for the Big Ten, what they're wanting as far as teams in the college football playoff, but there is no doubt that they want at least a guarantee moving forward past 2025 that those conferences are going to have multiple bids to the league. Is it 3? Is it 4? I don't know that they get as high as 5. Maybe they do. The SEC and the Big Ten can kind of name what they want at this point. College football's 10 big play wide receivers to watch this year. We talked a little bit about that early in the program, hour number 1. But if you look at this list by 247sports.com, again, some great playmakers out there. The number 1 wide receiver by 247 Sports is Luther Burden III, Missouri. You're talking about a guy who had just a heck of a year. I mean, he was a mismatched nightmare last year. 86 balls, 1,212 yards, 14.1 yards per catch as a sophomore, as the Tigers focused more on his development as a pass catcher and less as a kind of a gadget player, kind of a flex player. Burden has scored 18 touchdowns in 26 games, 15 receiving and 2 rushing and a punt return. So he'll be, if not the most, he'll be one of the biggest electric players in college football, and of course in the Southeastern Conference. Number 2, you have to go out to Arizona, as T. McMillan had a heck of a year, and he announced that he was going to stay at Arizona for the 2024 season alongside quarterback Noah Fafita. And now, of course, that's going to help them moving into the Big 12. There was some attrition off this Arizona team, but they'll be in the running for the Big 12 championship. And these two guys, the quarterback along with McMillan, will go a long way to their success. C.J. Daniels at LSU, he is a guy that should give a big punch for LSU this year. LSU needed a punch at wide receiver. And Liberty's C.J. Daniels raised his hand with immediate interest. He averaged 19.4 yards per catch last year in Jamie Chadwell's spread offense. Scored 10 touchdowns for the Flames, who were 13-0 prior to losing to Oregon in the Fiesta Bowl, with Joe Sloan handing more of the play-calling duties off to Mike Denbrock, who moved in from Notre Dame. Expect the Tigers to continue their downfield prowess, and Daniels to be a big reason for that. LSU led the SEC in pass plays for more than 30 yards last season with 40, and both of its top pass catchers are expected to be first-round selections. Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. Also, number 3, you got to go to Louisville. Colin Lacey, who had when you talk about Lacey, Jeff Brom completely flipped his roster after reaching the ACC championship game with more than 24 portal additions, including budding superstar out of South Alabama, Colin Lacey. So you're seeing, again, more guys who played group of 5 football, even some with FCS ties, head on to big-time football. So Colin Lacey scored 7 touchdowns last year, 5 going for 30 yards or more. He had all Sun Belt honors. Also, the 5'10", 190-pounder is coming off a stellar 2023 season where he ranked number 5 in the country in receptions at 91 and 1,316 yards during his 4-year stint at South Alabama. He had 208 catches for 2,521 yards and 13 touchdowns. Then, of course, you go to Ole Miss. Trey Harris, and what he did last year was just unbelievable. He's back for another year. Top target inside a room that's got a lot of targets. And he's a big part of why Ole Miss has a lot of momentum going into this year. Tez Johnson at Oregon, one of the deepest wideout rooms in college football, along with Texas and Ole Miss and some others, is Oregon. Slot Tez Johnson and Texas A&M transfer Evan Stewart on the outside. Johnson finished with a single-season record for receptions at 86 for the Ducks during Bo Nix's journey to the Heisman finalist honors and scored 10 touchdowns. I wonder this. Is Oregon going to dump truck the Big Ten? Because I don't know. Oregon just plays with a different speed. And while Ohio State is really good and talented. I don't know that getting out of your head there. Look, Michigan did it a different way this past year. They did it with a ground game with, you pair that with probably, if you listen to Jim Harbaugh, the best ever play-action passing quarterback in college football history in J.J. McCarthy, who was probably underutilized, plus a great defense. Oregon, though, the speed in which they play, and now you add Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, a quarterback who's the best in the country, at least coming back on paper. I don't know that the Big Ten's ready for this. I really don't. Do you have any thoughts on this?
That's why I said get out of my head, because when you asked, are they just going to run over the Big Ten? I'm leaning yes. My only thought was Ohio State because, and that's not normal for me to say, as you know, I think the addition of Chip Kelly is going to be really good for them. But when it comes to Oregon, I'm with you on that. They seem to be at another level. They were at a whole other level in the Pac-12, well, them in Washington. I think it's going to be the same in the Big Ten. I think Ohio State's going to be the only team that can really hang with them, and I don't know how far they can really hang with them.
They just play at a different clip. They really do. They run their offense at a different clip. They've recruited at a high clip as well. They're one of the top teams in the country as far as talent. I'll get into their schedule. The Oregon Ducks. I really like this team this year, and I think it's a two-horse race in the Big Ten. I think it's Oregon and Ohio State. Michigan is going to drop back in the pack this year. I am glad that I was able to help them get a championship, but we have to move to help somebody else get a championship. I don't know that Penn State, what did John Wiener used to say, miss me with that? You can miss me. Penn State's got to prove it. I just don't know that James Franklin can get those guys where they need to be in competition. So I like Oregon and Ohio State in the Big Ten. Those two teams may be the best two teams in the country. Yeah, I said that. CWR, Jake is manifesting. Jake Manifesting. That could be my new name. Jake Manifesting. Hour 3 up next.
WRKS Pickens Jackson, where it's
Time
to take a ride. Yes, we're back with Jake Wimberly on the afternoon drive. It's live, it's local, and it's on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Hour 3 starts right now, courtesy of Capitol Grill in Jackson. Grab a Michelob Ultra, Bud Light. It's happy hour. Please drink responsibly, courtesy of Southern Beverage. Grab a meal, an appetizer. Forget about your work day. A game of pool. Grab a ball game and more at Capitol Grill in Jackson. 5050 I-55 North Suite F. That is our good friends at Capitol Grill in Jackson. We're also brought to you by Cowboy Maloney's. You can text us 601-885-3776. That is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. And let me tell you right now, as far as Cowboy Maloney's is concerned, I am looking, where did my one sheet go on Cowboy Maloney's? Let me find it here real quick. Unless somebody deleted it out of my email. They got some, here we go. Want you to stretch your tax refund dollars. Do it at Cowboy Maloney's. Buy more, save more. Up to $1,000 in rebates available. Take advantage of this promotion right now. Mix top selected brands. Save up to $1,000 on appliances, electronics, and bedding products. You can do that with Cowboy Maloney's. All the great names you trust like LG, Sharp, Samsung, Electrolux, and more. Consumer electronics, appliances, bedding, and more. CowboyMaloney's.com, 13 locations around the state. All right, let's see. So far, David Murray joined us talking Mississippi State sports in hour one. We'll get all this up tomorrow on the podcast. Chris Landry, 4 to 4:30. We have Mike Grace coming up in the next segment with the press box. We're talking about Oregon. And if you go over here and look at AmeriStarCasino.com/Vicksburg, get the bet builder, NCAA playoff odds, you get some good value on Oregon. 8.5 to 1 right now to win the whole thing. I'd have no problem. Now, I haven't finished working my numbers. I haven't picked the team to win the whole thing yet. 8.5 to 1, Oregon Ducks, I'm good with that. Again, I remind you, Ole Miss is 11 to 1, right behind Oregon. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ole Miss has the 5th best odds to win the national title. They are tied with Alabama at 11 to 1. And I am here to tell you, believe it or not, those two are not the same. And do you know I believe that Ole Miss is a better 11 to 1 than Alabama this year? I think Ole Miss is a better 11 and 1 value than Alabama. Again, I think Alabama's going 8 and 4, 9 and 3. I think their schedule is against them. I think Nick Saban is against them. I think there's Waffle House is against them. There's just too much against Alabama. Ole Miss is playing with a lot of momentum. They've had momentum. They worked the transfer portal. They got the number 1 portal class in the country. They got one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They got one of the best play callers in the country. And their schedule is not that hard. But yeah, they're going to have Georgia coming in. They've got some games down the stretch. But are you of the opinion that that 11 to 1 is the same or one is different? I think Ole Miss is a better value this year than Alabama, and I have never said that. But this year, Ole Miss 11 and 1. If you're giving me two, I'm taking Ole Miss over Alabama. 11 and 1.
They are different. You were right about that. They are different 11 and 1s. Alabama's the better one.
RT says because you've forgotten who Milroe is. No, RT, I know who Jalen Milroe is. I know that he is a guy, when you come at him with a blitz package right up the middle, you will wreck him. Michigan proved that over and over. And Michigan just teed off. They said, you know what? We got corners that can run with their guys, and we're going right over the center, who can't snap it to him, and we are going to take him that way, which is backwards. And that's exactly what they did. I like Jalen Milroe. His story's fantastic. He seems like a good dude. But he is not going to win you a national championship at Alabama. He's not Tua Tagovailoa. He's not Mac Jones. He's not Jalen Hurts. He's not Bryce Young. He's none of those guys. And I don't even know that he's the best quarterback on that Alabama roster, honestly. I don't know that the Washington kid, the young guy from Washington that followed DeBoer down from Washington, he may be the best guy in the future. Let's go to Ready Teddy. Teddy, how are you, sir? Welcome in.
Man, I am fantastic. I give you three guesses, and the first two don't count. Who's been on Ole Miss for 3 years to win a national championship?
Teddy, you have wrote it and wrote it and wrote it. I know you're on it this year. 11 to 1, Teddy, I'd take that bet.
Oh, I'm going to take it for the odds get lower.
Yes, you want to do that for sure. Well,
here's what happens, because they may think they are, but Athlons and Phil Steele and all those guys, they're not as wrapped up in it as we are, because we're here. We're local. We're whether you like it or not, you feel a buzz. Whether you're a state guy, southern guy, whatever, there is a buzz. And Phil Steele is probably not going to feel it, and I don't know who Mr. Athlon is, but he's probably not either. And as they get together and they start wrapping up in it and feeling it, even though they do it professionally all day, every day, there's I don't know, there's no emotion there and there's no tug to it. And I know, Professor, you're just, thinking business sense, but, when you add the business sense and then the emotional excitement of it, it just makes for a lot of fun. And like I said, Phil Steele and Mr. Athlon probably aren't doing it for fun, so that makes it even more fun for us.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see. Of course, we'll visit with Phil when he gets his magazine done, where he has Ole Miss. A lot of the national publications are all in on Ole Miss. Vegas is in on them. So we'll see where he puts them in his 12-team playoff bracket here in the next few months.
But I think one more thing before I get off here is one more thing. We'll know more after spring practice. We don't know how many bodies are actually going to be there and be a part of what I would consider to be, of course, there's fall. They call it fall camp, but after spring practice, we'll know a lot more. But right now, all we have to get excited about is the buzz, and the buzz is a lot of fun for me.
Oh, there's no doubt, as it should be. Embrace it.
Appreciate it.
All right, brother. Appreciate it. 601-897-1059. Jason in Flagstaff. The Alabama creeping bin is lighter than the Georgia creeping bin. Hey, I saw a funny meme, or I thought it was funny. Speaking of Georgia, it said, is Brock Purdy just a sober version of Stetson Bennett? What do you think about that? Are they the same player? Just one party's on the street, and Brock Purdy seems to be pretty straight-laced. We can't compare those two guys.
You can't compare them because one didn't even get on the field, and one was in the Super Bowl. So, no.
Monkeys riding dogs. Sounds like your three teams are going to be Texas, Oregon, and Ohio State. I don't know that yet. They will be in the mix for sure. I do like Texas. I like Texas a lot. I like Oregon. I like Ohio State. But I tell you what, Georgia is still going to be right there. Why do you keep forgetting about Georgia?
Me?
Yes. Why you just?
How did you get? Wait a minute.
You just discard Georgia out of this whole conversation.
I don't know when I did that. Must have been when I had that. It must have been 2 hours ago when my head didn't feel like it was in my head.
Is that medicine working?
Maybe that headache. Yeah, I think so.
Be $50.
You really are. Okay. You're taking this whole nurse thing pretty far.
Yeah, Nurse Jake. I know. If our friend Tatted Brad is listening, I know he does not like the Georgia disrespect. Georgia's going to be right there, too. I mean, Georgia's not going anywhere. Georgia's going to play for the SEC title game. They're going to be in the playoff. They're going to have a say in this. I won't say the championship goes through Georgia. But back to this Oregon conversation. When you look at Oregon and their schedule, they open up oddly on the road at Hawaii. On the road at Hawaii, they'll go to the island, have a good time, and win by 50. They come back and play Idaho, Boise State, at Oregon State, the Civil War game, at UCLA, stand out on the West Coast. And while UCLA will be a, quote, Big Ten game, their first Big Ten game against a Big Ten, traditional Big Ten team is Michigan State. And then on October 12th, they host Ohio State. At Purdue, Illinois, they go to Michigan, November 2nd, Maryland, at Wisconsin, and then Washington to end the season in Eugene. So we'll see. I mean, that's they play 2 games. It's kind of what they play. Kind of like Texas. We talk about Texas. They only kind of play 2 games, really. So that'll make it interesting. RT says Carson is Mason Rudolph. I don't know that we can go there yet. I got to see. Are you talking about Carson Beck? Yeah, Carson Beck stinks. I don't know that he stinks. I'm not ready to go there yet. I mean, he had a pretty productive year. But anyway, nonetheless, I really like this Oregon team, and I think they could run roughshod over the Big Ten this year. We're brought to you by our friends at Jenny King. They are the king of clean. Go to JennyKingCleans.com. Let them help you in your school, buildings, office buildings, churches, or place of worship, any kind of venue, medical facility, or more. They can help you keep it clean, help keep the sickness away, all the stuff that we don't like. Go to JennyKingCleans.com. Mike Grace coming up in just a bit.
This is the home of the Chuck Oliver Show every weekday from 10 till noon on Mississippi's live and local sports authority. And where? We're back to Jake Quiverly with the afternoon drive on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by A1 Gear and Auto, your hometown vehicle specialist, 601-939-1060. Anything under the hood. Get your heat fixed if you need it this time of year, AC during the summer. Also, engines, starters, radiators, rear differentials, rings, and pinions. Down on Highway 49 in Florence, just as you come into Florence on Highway 49 on the right, go see Justin Nelson and his team at A1 Guaranado, 601-939-1060. Mike Grace with the Press Box. You can hear it every afternoon, 8 to 10, right here on 105.9 The Zone. Also, check it out on Press Box Radio. He is on your radio now. Mike, welcome in, sir. How are you?
Great, man. Good to have you, and great to be back in my old stomping ground.
Hey, absolutely. Glad to have you back as well. And before we get into a little things going on in basketball and baseball, I want to get your thoughts on the College Football Playoff Committee today. Finally coming to an agreement on the 5+7 model. 4 Power 4 conference champions, a group of 5 champion, 7 at large. And then, of course, immediately following, you hear rumblings coming out of the meetings that the SEC and the Big Ten could be lobbying for more after 2025, 2026 with, automatic qualifiers from the SEC and the Big Ten, maybe even more money. There was a reason the SEC and the Big Ten joined forces.
Well, and if you're, come on, if you've got the clout, why not throw it around a little bit and see what it can get you? One of the stories out there is that one of these leagues, we don't know which, but was asking for 4 automatic qualifiers among the 12. Maybe that's too much, but look, they are going to rule, the SEC and the Big Ten, going to rule college football at least in the near future. So you would expect, if this is what they want, they probably want a bigger piece of the pie monetarily, whatever they get. They probably deserve it. Right now, they're running the game of college football, those 2 leagues.
Let's walk over and talk a little college basketball. Looking at some bracketology, the SEC, 8, 9 teams, depending on, the bracketologist that you look at. Alabama with a 1-game advantage over Tennessee as we come down the stretch now. You look inside the state, Ole Miss and Mississippi State will play tomorrow night at Humphrey Coliseum. Both teams sit at 6-6. Dogs on a 3-game winning streak. The Rebs, obviously a 1-game winning streak. So a lot on the line for both State and Ole Miss, and, of course, this conference as well as we come down the stretch.
Yeah, and I think, again, 9 teams from everyone we talked to, Jake, seems to be the consensus that right now, the last time I looked, maybe Texas A&M was in as an 11 seed, one of the first 4. But outside of that, State and Ole Miss, I saw them both listed as 10 seeds. And I think everybody else is pretty much solid. South Carolina, Kentucky, I saw as 6s. And then from there, look, this regular season championship is going to be a blast to watch down the stretch. You can take any of these teams and kind of look at their schedules and say, whether it's Alabama, whether it's Kentucky, whether it's Tennessee, South Carolina, Auburn, whoever wins this regular season title is really going to earn it because the schedule's going to be great over the next couple of weeks, man.
It absolutely is. It's hard to know until you see the brackets because we know this. When you get into tournament play, and we'll make the same case when you get into the college football playoff, your seeding matters, who you play matters. Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, you referenced those guys. Is there one team you like that said, hey, regardless of the setup, I like this team to make a run, Elite 8, possibly Final 4? Is there one above the rest in the SEC?
Well, look, what Alabama's done is just incredible, man. They've got Mark Sears who's shooting 45% beyond the three-point line at over, 130 attempts or something like that. They've got size inside. They've got, again, a handful of guys who can light it up from outside. We've seen them, hit 100-plus 8 different times, but can they play enough defense? I love Auburn's depth. The Jalen Williams factor is a big key. They need him back to make their run. But look out for this Kentucky team, man. They are surging at the right time. So is Florida, for that matter. Don't look now, but the Gators have won 7 of their last 8, and they get Bama tomorrow night. That'll be a huge, huge matchup, and we'll see if the Gators can. And actually, I think those two actually have to play twice between now and the end of the regular season. So the Florida Gators are going to have a say in who wins this regular season title.
College baseball is finally officially here. Of course, we got this past weekend behind us, and we're visiting with Mike Grace for the Press Box. Make sure to find him on X. Check him out. You can hear him here tonight, 8 to 10 tonight on The Zone. But college baseball off and running. A small sample size. Georgia, Kentucky, South Carolina, no problems in the East with a sweep over the weekend. You got some 2-1s, and an 0-1 Florida got 1 ball game in. Auburn, LSU, Texas A&M, along with Alabama sweeps. State and Ole Miss dropped a game and or 2 if you're Ole Miss. We're early, but this, you look at the, all the rankings and, Baseball America and all of your baseball polls. Again, you talk about loaded front to back. We talk a lot about football and basketball, but man, baseball, this is going to be interesting to see because we'll be in conference play before you know it. It is going to be a grind for all of these teams, and particularly State and Ole Miss, who a lot of people are watching to see what they do.
And now in the day and age of transfer portal and name, image, likeness, Jake, these rosters turn over so much so fast. Who really knows what we've got just a week into the season? I think there are, probably half a dozen or more of these SEC teams that are loaded that could win it all if all the pieces fall in place. But it's going to be a great season, as always, in SEC baseball. You got to help me, man. It's been a rough couple of seasons I'm a maroon and white bulldog down deep. What's it going to take to turn around that Mississippi State program and get it back to what Bulldog fans are used to it being?
Well, this will be cliche, right? And you got to pitch it well and you got to hit it well. And I know that sounds cliche, but that is where Mississippi State is at. They had some production at the plate over the past weekend. They had some guys strike out as well. But I think a lot of that production, especially if it's big hits, home runs, you're moving runners around the plate, they'll take that. And I'll volley that question back to you and say, what is success this year for Mississippi State? Talking to a lot of people in Ole Miss in that regard as well is it as simple as, hey, you've got to get back to postseason play. You've got to be in the field of 64. And, oh, by the way, it wouldn't hurt if you hosted a regional as well.
Well, certainly State and Ole Miss are used to that, right? And, I mean, that's got to be what the goal is to get back there. I think the key for State especially, and this is what was just their Achilles heel the last couple of seasons, is the ability to throw strikes, man. They walked so many batters, hit so many batters, gave so many free bases up last year. I don't care how great your offense is, you just can't do that consistently and be winners. And I think that's the key for them. Can they throw strikes this weekend against small sample, but certainly look better than a year ago when they were walking 10 and hitting a couple, every 9 innings. So I think that's the key for this State pitching staff. Can they throw strikes and not give up free bases and free runs to people?
Mike, tell everybody where they can find your show. I know you guys got a lot of stuff coming down the pipe, some new stuff, great guests coming up on the press box.
Well, we do, man. We got Keith Carter, the Ole Miss Athletic Director or Vice Chancellor of Intercollegiate Athletics, if you prefer the formal title. He'll be with us on Wednesday as well. And we're having some fun with John Sunvold of the SEC Network tomorrow as well. And how about Kermit Davis? There's a name that both Ole Miss and State fans will remember. Kermit Davis Jr. is going to be on the show with us on Wednesday as well.
Mike, always appreciate your time on such short notice. Look, we'll catch up and do it again very soon. I appreciate you.
Enjoyed it, Jake. Thanks, man.
Thanks so much. Mike Grace on your radio, brought to you by Mac Hike and Madison Gluckstadt. It is Truck Month. Madison Gluckstadt location, on-site and online. MacHikeMadison.com. Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and Chevy. Madison Gluckstadt. Back in a bit.
And action!
We got that and a whole lot more around here. It's the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly.
What's the score?
He's got that, along with the hottest sports stories of the day on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by Bailey Lumber. Open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. BaileyLumber.com. GAF Roofing Specials, lumber, windows, doors, hardware, everything you need. Trex Decking Specials, Legacy Cabinets in Brandon and in Jackson. 2150 Mississippi Highway 471. That's on Highway 471 in Brandon. 4525 John Lynch Street in Jackson. BaileyLumber.com. I appreciate Mike Grace jumping in. You can text us 601-885-3776. All that will be on the podcast tomorrow at some point. All right, let's see here real quick. Jason, what do you know about Arizona's new coach? I don't know anything about him. All right, and so let's look real quickly and pull a profile here. Because obviously when you look at Kalen DeBoer leaving Washington, and, of course, Washington raids Arizona, and then now Jed Fish heads to Arizona, and to Washington. That is going to obviously, when you talk about Arizona, what's interesting about Arizona is they had an opportunity, at least prior to the whole Kalen DeBoer to Washington deal, to be really, really good. I mean, a lot of people were already pegging them way too early to win the Big 12, but now when you look at the new coach, comes from a Group of 5 program, successful on a Group of 5 level, and look, he'll have some players to work with. A quarterback, a wide receiver, several other players that stayed with Arizona. They did a pretty good job, at least quickly, in the transfer portal. They'll be one of the players, if you look at the Big 12, Arizona will be in the running for the Big 12. Utah will be in the running for the Big 12. Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Now, some are calling for Kansas to have a big year. I'm not ready to go down that road yet, but I've said this before. I think the Big 12 will be the funnest league to watch because, as Chris Landry said in hour number 2, you're probably going to have a 9-3 team win, and it may even be an 8-4 team win the conference, which will upset a lot of SEC fans. You know what's going to be bad is when an 8-4 or 9-3 team wins the Big 12, and then a possible 10-2 or 9-3 SEC team is left out. RT, no arch, no title, 9-3. No. Quinn Ewers has earned the right, took him to the playoff, and Arch has got his time coming. It's inevitable, isn't it, Beaver? It's inevitable. J-Rock, Austin P is a big-time program. No shame getting handled by them.
He's already consoling himself because that got me thinking, well, they must be losing.
What we got? Give me some scores.
Yeah, midweek baseball, game 4 of the season. You can still tell everything by this. Yeah, but Austin Peay's up 3-0, bottom of the 6th.
3-0, bottom of the 6th? Oh, boy. That's not good. That's not good at all. Let me look right here also. Good Lord. Well, at least J-Rock has got a sense of humor about it, right? Let's see here. Unnamed texter, I heard you mention Waffle House when you were looking at who has the best chance between Bama and Ole Miss. How do you use Waffle House in your algorithm? Is this how you picked Michigan last year? Is this the secret to great picks? I can't tell you that. I can't tell you if that is part of the algorithm. For Alabama, it's got to be, right?
I don't feel like Harbaugh is a Waffle House man, so I don't think they factored into your Michigan last year.
He's a steak and milk man.
Yeah.
But he's not a Waffle House man, right?
Yeah.
Also, a little bit more on Brent Brennan, who was at San Jose State. He's 34 and 48 overall. But now some of that, San Jose State was a dumpster fire. And he did a good job with the transfer portal, working to get a lot of good, decent players at San Jose State to end up having a pretty good run out there. 2 Mountain West titles, 2020 and 2023. 1 Mountain West championship game in 2020. Coach of the Year in the Mountain West as well. So, never were they just great, but he did a pretty good job. It's San Jose State. That's a program that's an absolute dumpster fire. Real unnamed texter. On the ledge.
Get off there.
Are they on the ledge?
He is.
Let me look real quickly. SEC. Real quick on the SEC baseball scores. You said that game was in the bottom of the 6th? You just can't do that. Again, if you're Mississippi State, you just cannot have that happen. Let's see. Right now, kind of going through some quick scores. Well, look, Morehead State is up on Kentucky 5-2, and they are in the bottom of the 8th. South Carolina's on top of Winthrop 9-2. That game is in the top of the 8th, or headed to the top of the 8th. Tennessee struggling with UNC Asheville. They're up 3-2 as they head to the top of the 8th. Texas A&M 5, Incarnate Word 2. Yeah, and Austin Peay 3-0 as they head to the 7th. You can't do that. You can't lose midweek games to Austin Peay. Yeah, I figure X will burn down tonight if that is the case. Hey, I wanted to get to this yesterday, and I didn't get a chance, so we will today. Jackson State hit with an $800,000 bill because former coach Deion Sanders ended historic rivalry. Deion Sanders left Jackson State after the 2022 season, following a 12-1 season to go take the Colorado job. We know that. And the JSU Tigers... but he left the Tigers with a pretty big bill on the hook. That's because in 2022, Sanders pulled his Jackson State Tigers, who were 27-6, under his tutelage out of their annual Southern Heritage Classic ball game against Tennessee State, a historic HBCU matchup held on a neutral site field in Memphis. At the time, Deion Sanders gave understandable reasons for terminating Jackson State's Southern Heritage contract, with Summit Management Corporation, who puts on the annual event. Coach Prime posted on Instagram at that time to explain the decision, saying, quote, 7 buses for the band. We have 4 buses for all our people. And who else? Who else goes? Administration, hotel accommodations, food, all that. By the time we get back, we're broke. Which all of that makes sense in theory. By terminating Jackson State's contract with Summit Management Corporation 3 years into the 5-year contract, Summit Management Corporation in turn sued Jackson State for $1.8 million in damages. After legal proceedings, Jackson State has reportedly settled for $800,000, a bill that Jackson State now has to pay despite Coach Prime having left the school 2 years ago as the driving force behind pulling Jackson State out of the Southern Heritage Classic against Tennessee State on a neutral field in Memphis. Interestingly, the Clarion Ledger reports the settlement was reached around Halloween 2022, so it's taken nearly a year and a half for the news to make a news report, of this magnitude to make headlines. $800,000 bill that Jackson State is saddled with in light of everything. One has to wonder at this point if Jackson State wouldn't be pleased to still be participating in the annual Southern Heritage Classic. Jackson State went 7-4 last season without Coach Prime at the helm. Meanwhile, at the time of the decision when that was made by then head coach Sanders to pull Jackson State out of the game, it was by some the right one. What do you think about this? Now Jackson State's got to pay back an $800,000 bill.
Well, first off, on Jackson State, don't do the usual thing and lie and say you don't have the money. Pay your bill. And second, Deion Sanders, of course. He sure doesn't care. He saddled them with this. But, another piece of the puzzle of who Deion Sanders is. You wanted to believe he cared, didn't y'all? Y'all couldn't see. Y'all never could see it. Y'all still, you super fans are still going to stick up for him, though. But how you feel now?
Hashtag we coming. We're brought to you by Ranco Transmission, 1460 Old Brandon Road in Flowood, 601-939-9184. 50-plus years, foreign and domestic transmission repair. Back in just a bit.
Hi.
Into sports.
With Jake Wimberly on the afternoon drive.
One of the last pure pleasures I have left in my life.
Yeah, maybe you ought to get a life first, okay? On ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Brought to you by our friends at Gutter Masters, online at guttermastersllc.com. Get protected today, 601-503-7755. Custom gutter solutions on your home with Gutter Masters. We're also brought to you by New South Neurospine, Mississippi Spine Center. NS2.MD is the website, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., also Saturdays till 1 o'clock. Walk-in clinic, always available in Flowood, Mississippi Spine Center. That is New South Neurospine. We appreciate David Murray, Chris Landry, and Mike Grace jumping in the Maristar Casino Studios today. We'll get all that up for you if you missed any of that. Let's see here. Let me catch up real quick. Jason in Flagstaff. Did you see what I sent you on X a while back about why Fish left and why the AD got ran out on a rail? Slow-rolling Fish extension. I saw that. I'll have to go back and take a look at that. RT, God-fearing man who cares about teaching rather than wins. I don't know who he speaks of. Is he talking about Fish?
Yeah, he's talking about Deion Sanders.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he'll text me 28 more times and tell me about it, RT.
Do we have a Mississippi State Alston P update? Let's see if we can get an update on this before Mississippi State fans. See if you can give me an update. I know Alabama's on top of MTSU 3-1. That game is going into the top of the 7th. We'll see if we can get a Mississippi State update. All right, a couple other things as we move along here. Obviously, bracketology will continue to unfold in front of our eyes. Gets a little bit thicker what we got over there? You got a score?
Oh, Mississippi State just does a horrible job updating their scores. Good for y'all, big-time program. This says Oh, Bulldogs are trying to claw back 3-2.
3-2. Bulldogs within a score, and that's going to be in the bottom of the sixth, I believe. I'll get back in here to March Madness here in just a bit. Possum Joe, I think I'm going with the Memphis Showboat. They have Vince Papali's son on the roster. Invincible was an excellent movie about Papali's time at the Philadelphia Eagles back in the day and played on the big screen by Mark Wahlberg. Oh, it was a fantastic. Did you like that movie?
Yeah.
Where would you rate that in sports movies?
I don't think it would have been in my top 5, but it was a good movie.
Top 10?
Maybe top 10, yeah.
It was a heck of I liked it. I mean, it wouldn't be my top 5 either. I've always told you one of the best is Friday Night Lights, the movie, over the miniseries.
You never even saw the series.
I saw a little bit of it. I was not. It felt more like a teenage girls drama series. That's what it felt like. There was no Booby Miles. There was none of that in there. It seemed like it was all about Kirk and Jessica hanging out at the local Sonic on a Thursday night before a big game on Friday. There was just a lot going on there. A lot about life and not a lot about football. Would that be accurate?
No, it would not be accurate at all. Booby Miles was a loose character.
What?
It was a loose character, and it had real world ramifications.
It did,
because it inspired Anthony Dixon to try to convince the world that his name was Booby, and that was so stupid. God, I hated that. And I remember that was during Wiener's time, and he loved it, and roles were reversed. I said, miss me with that. Booby Dixon. Your name is Anthony.
But everybody called him Booby Dixon.
And it's the Friday Night Lights' fault.
You're saying he ripped the show off?
No, the movie.
Or the movie.
Booby Miles.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't remember this whole name fiasco?
I do, but I thought that's what they called him in high school. Booby Dixon.
Throughout his entire college career and a good chunk of his NFL career, I had never known him to go by Booby. It was always Anthony. And this fool just changed it to Booby in like 2014 or something like that. It's out of nowhere.
Well, just call him. So no Booby Miles or Dixon. Just call him Tony Dixon. Short for Anthony. How about Tony Booby Dixon? Have a compromise.
Tony. Okay.
Let's see. 3-ump camel. Speaking of fish, the water is hitting that magic 55 mark on some of state lakes. Got this one Saturday. Anytime you want to go bass fishing, Jake, let me know. That is a nice fish. Really nice fish. Beeve, you like to bass fish?
You know, I've never just fished for a specific fish. Not that I've been fishing in a long time. But anytime I fished, it was just fishing in general.
Well, maybe we need to get with 3-hump camel and go on a bass fishing expedition.
Okay.
What do you think about that?
I'm for it.
DB, Coach Prime left the program with a paid for practice and updated the locker room. I thought the lack of forward thinking and proper marketing for Prime's departure more than Jackson State is responsible for his leaving. DB, there's definitely some blame to go around on all sides. I don't know that Jackson State could have ever done anything to totally keep him. I think he was always out the door. You could have extended that stay. We'll never know that. But I think he was probably always out the door. I think that was some of the early kind of conversation is how long can you keep him here?
Yeah. Well, there was no way they could compete money-wise. And, plus God told him to go. Remember. Always remember that. God told him to go to Colorado, even though God told him to go to Jackson State.
I'll leave you with this today. Scientists warn of a giant invasive spider that could be taking over cities really soon. You ready for this? Scientists recently announced that they believe invasive giant. Now, help me with this word. Joro. Is that Joro or is that Horo? Where is JC?
I wouldn't even.
We'll call it a Horo spider. will soon be spreading across the East Coast before possibly covering the entire country. The Horo spider first appeared near Atlanta, Georgia, in the United States around 2013 when they were reportedly brought into the country inside a shipping container by accident. Up until then, mostly appeared in Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and China. They have since spread across Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Alabama, Tennessee, Maryland, West Virginia, and Oklahoma. Now researchers from the University of Georgia believe the giant spider will be spreading even further and begin taking over cities and other urban areas across the East Coast. What makes this so odd from a scientific standpoint is that urban areas with busy roads are notably stressful environments for spiders and other animals, researchers wrote in a press release. That, however, doesn't seem to stop this spider, who builds their webs between power lines and the top of stoplights and even above pumps at local gas stations. The researchers found that while the Horo spider is near busier roads of somewhat less likely to attack simulated prey, the spider doesn't seem to be hurting for it. And of course, they clock in at about the same weight as their counterparts in a less busy location. The suggestions are that the species can successfully compensate for human-dominated landscape. So they're basically saying that, and it says these spiders can be as big as 3 inches across, and their web, they can lay anywhere from up to 400 to 1,500 eggs at a time. So you ready for this? This is a 3-inch spider. That thing's about that big.
This is horrifying. One more thing to worry about. And you mentioned a lot of places that it's from. I couldn't help but focus on China. Haven't you done enough to us?
Seems like it always comes from China, doesn't it? Seems like it always does. Let's see here. Well, I think I was fixing to get into something else, but we're about out of time. I appreciate David Murray, Chris Landry, and Mike Grace. Appreciate you guys on the text line, the calls today as well. As we'll be back tomorrow, 3 to 6, obviously Thursday and Friday, full week of shows. We're not offering any baseball or basketball this week.
No, because tomorrow's basketball until 8, I believe.
And, of course, next week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we got the MHSA basketball championships. Remember, ketchup is king, bacon's a delicacy, aloha means goodbye. Be a man of increase. See you tomorrow.